This is the Page Publishing Book Club. How you doing? I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. You gotta admit, it's been a little weird, right? We've had the pandemic, the spotted lanternfly, the war over in the Ukraine with Russia. I don't know. Just a lot of crazy stuff happening, and I don't know what your religious persuasion is, but it has gotten people to thinking. People like Cheyenne O'Connor. He's been a pastor for 29 years and a clinical psychologist, and he explains what he thinks is driving some of the most unusual events to ever happen on earth in his book, Is God Still Coming? A stunning revelation of how current events are fulfilling Bible prophecy.
My book was inspired from the coronavirus spread in 2020. I was in California at the time doing my clinical hours for my clinical psychology license. And so I was also pastoring one of the churches in Silicon Valley. And of course, California, was shut down, was one of the first states that went into shelter in place. So while I was there, I said to myself, this coronavirus has to be much bigger than what we're perceiving to be, because it has global effect. And so from a pastoral perspective, I've been somebody who has been working on end-time prophecies in the Bible. In fact, when coronavirus started, I was doing a series. Each time I go before my congregation, I had a feature that is called Prophecy in the News This Week, because I was very conscious of so many things that were happening around us in the community, in the world, that I could identify those things as being prophetic fulfillment. And I was concerned that majority of the members of my church and so many people in the world are not conscious. They are not able to make that link, perhaps because they have not gotten the chance to study Bible prophecy. So I decided to make this feature as Prophecy in the News This Week. And so every time there's something that was a prophetic fulfillment, I would highlight it before my congregation. And I remembered in February of 2020, when the coronavirus started in Wuhan, China, and I said to my congregation, here's another prophetic fulfillment, another disease, what we call plague. And little did I know that within months it would have landed on the shores of the United States and then shut the entire country down. It became bigger, much bigger than I ever thought it would have been. And so that forced me really, I felt that the Spirit of the Lord spoke to me that we need to put something together so that the entire world may understand that the things that are happening around us, the wars, the climate change, the explosion of intellectual technology, all of these things have been prophesied in the Bible, and I've decided to put that together in this book called Is God Still Coming? So that when anyone reads it, they can identify the things happening around them as fulfillment of the prophecy and of the end of the world.
So do you go as far as to predict when the end of the world might be coming?
So that's a very good question. No, the Bible had actually made it very clear that nobody knows the day or the hour, not even the angels in heaven. So that particular date is not revealed in prophecy. However, what is revealed is a considerable amount of signs or indications that tell how close we are. And so what we are seeing happening on an unprecedented scale it have been documented in the book of Revelation and the book of Daniel. Those are the two main prophetic books, what we call apocalyptic books in the Bible, that really have not been preached much in many churches. Most preachers tend to stay away from them because they require deep study. And to understand them, you have to understand them along with current events. That's what makes the Bible so interesting. So things like climate change, for example, is a big part of my book because very fascinating stuff. If you ever read Matthew 24, verses 6, 7, and 8, Jesus referred to some stuff that will happen on planet Earth, such as wars and earthquakes and plagues, and he referred to them as beginning of sorrows. Right? Very fascinating term he used. Now, if you understand that beginning of sorrow, the word sorrow there is the same word used in Genesis when God said to Eve, in sorrow you shall conceive and bear a child, which means that what Christ is actually saying that these climate change disasters that we're seeing here are what he referred to as birth pain, sorrow, the same labor pain, right? Fascinating stuff. And so you have to ask the question, if these tornadoes and tsunamis and earthquakes and all of those stuff that we're seeing around us, if these are labor pain, then the question is, who is giving birth? And the answer is planet Earth. So, and if planet Earth is giving birth, then what is it giving birth to? Answer, it's giving birth to a new earth. And that's exactly what is prophesied in Bible. It's a fascinating stuff.
It's fascinating because some people think, the only way we can move forward is to just start from scratch again.
Mm.
It's been so messed up, we can't fix it anymore.
Exactly. I have a trailer out on my YouTube channel, and I encourage, every time I speak, I encourage my members and everybody to get a copy of the book because the book explains end time prophecy. And to be honest with you, it's a little challenging for some people because when you go into end time prophecies like the book of Revelation and Daniel, it's not a simple read like Psalm 23, the Lord is my shepherd kind of stuff. This is right. The prophecies are coded in symbols. And so it is difficult for the average person to understand. And that is why I'd love for them to read the book because I do make it very simple and connect the dots, right? So that people can see what's happening in the world and make sense of it from a biblical perspective.
All right, Pastor. Very interesting. I will say that. Thank you. Larry Fung is an inspirational speaker with an inspirational message in his book, Fallen from Grace.
I just sat down one day and I just thought about just the grace of God and how wonderful God is. I just started writing because I do inspirational speaking. And I thought about how people go through things in life and how the grace of God just protects them and they don't know they're being protected by the grace of God.
So Tyrone is your main character. So he's a pastor and he winds up in jail.
Yeah.
While his wife ends up fighting for her life in the hospital because she has endured so much physical and emotional pain, I guess, being married to him.
Right. Pastor Tyrone was a man that got out of prison and God had raised him up and used him for the kingdom of God. They built this church and congregation. He was a man that did a lot for the community, but he ended up going back into the lifestyle that God had delivered him out of.
Why does he land in jail?
Because he had an altercation with his wife at the hotel. His wife was with another man, and he went in and he attacked his wife, and he ended up going to jail for it. At one time, he was in prison. He got out of prison, and when he got out of prison, he found his calling and what God had for him in life, and God raised him up to be this wonderful, unique pastor. But he ended up going back into the lifestyle God delivered him from, doing drugs. He ended up in jail again. The book is just about, it's basically just a dream. How God warned Pastor Tyrone what was going to take place in his life if he didn't come out of his sinful ways. Everything that happened in the book is a dream.
So he wakes up at the end?
God, he wakes up at the end and he gets on his knees and he repents. But what God was showing him is if you don't get your life together, because didn't nobody know what Pastor Tyrone was doing behind closed doors but him, his wife, and God. Only him and God knew. Yeah, what he was doing. So the book is basically based off of a story of forgiveness, of love, and how the church, a lot of times in church, people fall from grace or whatever in church, but the church didn't turn their back on him. The church actually came together, prayed for him, and dealt with the situation. But a lot of times when you fall back into sin, you live in shame and guilt. But the book is just basically about when you live in shame and guilt, you'll never get back to doing what you're supposed to do as a believer because we all fall short. So it's basically just letting the people know that you can fall, but like the Bible said, just man falls 7 times and rise back up again. Don't go in a desolate place and hide. But no, come out, get back on your feet, and just move forward. And that's what a lot of people do. They fall short of God's grace, and they hide because of the guilt and shame. The Bible said there's no condemnation unto no to any man. So you don't have to live in condemnation once you get on your knees, ask God to forgive you for your sins. You just gotta keep going in with his walk. And so that's basically the foundation of the book is just letting people know, yeah, even though you fell short of God's grace, even though you made some mistakes, get back up and keep going forward.
I hear you, Larry. It's not how you fall, it's how you get back up. Thank you. Haley Schwebel raises puppies for Smoky Mountain Service Dogs, a nonprofit that custom trains service dogs for wounded veterans. And this book is about her first puppy entitled Cowboy's Big Dream.
Cowboy was my first puppy, and through his eyes, I guess, I kind of lied and did whatever I think his perspective would be about what he can and can't do out in public. Things that he would do, like he would steal kitchen towels and he's not supposed to, how to put on his vest, what he had to do, ignore people when we were out in public, learn to ignore everything around him and focus on me. It's a children's book that think it's geared towards third and fourth graders, but it's hopefully a book that everybody of all ages would enjoy. He had big dreams. He just didn't know what they were about, didn't understand why he was so happy in these dreams. Gets raised by a foster family for 15 months, and that's me as a puppy raiser. And then they go to professional trainers, or what I call college. He learns to be around wheelchairs, big objects that you might have to move around, laundry baskets or open doors, closed, pick up credit cards, canes.
He picks up credit cards.
Yes, they teach the dogs to pick up credit cards off the floor. I don't know how they teach him that. It's not my part of the training. He still gets to be a real dog and still gets to enjoy life. And then he goes to bed and dreams his dream. And then once he gets to the passing of a leash and he's about 2.5 years old, then they get to meet with his veteran that he gets paired up with. And then at the end of the book, it talks about the do's and don'ts around service dogs and the etiquette for the public of what they should and shouldn't do around when they see a service dog.
What shouldn't they do?
There's quite a few things. Like a lot of people like to talk and they want to pet it and stuff, which you really shouldn't do because that will distract the dog from being focused on who they need to be tending to. And as a puppy raiser, that's a big challenge being out in public with people that don't know how they should act around a service dog. We always have to say they're working right now, so they can't be petted and they can't be distracted. So it's essentially like taking out a cane and trying to kick someone's cane out from underneath them. So
I like the phrase passing of the leash.
yes, so the passing of the leash is where everybody that was involved in raising and training the dog gets to come up to the front, and we have a big ceremony and the veteran's there and we honor the veteran and what he's done for our country and stuff. And then so the passing of the leash, all the volunteers get up there that have dealt with him or trained him. They get to go walk him down the line and he gets to say hi to everybody and all the people that he's known throughout his life, and then gets passed on to his veterans. So
He must be so proud when he reaches that point.
oh yeah, they're all going crazy by that point, and then tears are everywhere. So
Now, does the dog pick the veteran or does the veteran pick the dog?
I think if I'm correct, I think they get a choice of a couple, 2 or 3 dogs that are kind of based on what would be suited best for the veteran, and then they get to kind of meet each dog and kind of pick from that. So
When the veteran gets the dog, does he get this book? He or she get this book?
well, we've only had one veteran that has had a passing of the leash since my book came out. So I know she did buy one for her grandson. So yeah.
So you sit there and bring your books and sign them at these ceremonies?
Yeah, yes. If anybody wants to buy one from me, they can go to the Passing of the Leash in Tellico Village and they can have a book signed from me.
Is there a particular kind of breed that you look for?
The organization looks through, they kind of deal with more of the labs or golden retrievers. They just find that they're much more willing and adaptable to being out in public, wanting to be friendly and wanting to be trained, I guess. It's nothing against any of the other breeds. It's just what they find is the better breeds to work with. I mean, more people are aren't as scared of a lab as they are of a pit bull. So when you see them out in public, they're more timid of them, I guess. I don't know.
All right, that makes sense. Thanks so much, Haley. When COVID hit, Don Halstead had to completely alter his active lifestyle. And since his wife was writing books, he figured he could write a couple too. Now we have The Adventures of Pete, the Golden Retriever.
Paige published two of her books, and one was Malcolm's Gift, and then the other was What's Up Next. And I've actually got 8 books in print, 7 of which are with Page Publishing.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I got on a roll and just started writing books, writing stories, and then submitting them to the publisher. The book that I was going to talk about is The Adventures of Pete the Golden Retriever. This book, the setting is basically in Napa in California. And it talks about this golden retriever who is a very, very sweet dog, but he seems to get into all kinds of trouble. And the motivation for this book is my wife, Sherry, is originally from Napa, California. And actually, the little girl in the story is my wife as a young child. So anyhow, this golden retriever, he follows her to school one day and goes into school, and then they lock up the school, and he's stuck there overnight. Then he has a situation where Sherry has a birthday party, and the golden retrievers really get excited, and he gets really excited, and he hits the cake that's on the dining room table, and it falls in the lap of the father. So they have to get another cake, and then there's a couple of other episodes. They go on a hike up in the mountains, and he runs into a grizzly bear.
Okay.
And then one other episode, they go for a hike, and he runs into a skunk and gets sprayed.
Ew.
So it's like the dog is really a sweet dog. It just seems to get in situations. I guess it's kind of a kid's book, and I guess if there's a message, it's how you can have pets, and they inadvertently just get into trouble. But the dog is really helpful. They live on a farm. They have a vineyard, and the dog really, in one case, gives them an alert because the dog senses frost, and then you don't want frost on the grapevines. So he was able to alert the father. Says, "Oh, we got a problem," and he kind of saves the grapevines from the frost.
Nice.
So the golden retriever is a sweet dog. It just gets into mischief, trouble. Again, oftentimes inadvertently, and then it's a wonderful family pet. I've got a book that's being worked on by Page Publishing right now, and it's called A Dog's World, and it's got 4 short dog stories. And the second story is about Pete, and it's called Pete's Yellowstone Adventure. So it's like, Pete, the golden retriever, goes with his family. They go to Yellowstone National Park, and, they have things they see there.
All right, Don. Sounds like fun. I'm glad you're keeping busy. All right, thank you. Dr. Kimberly Mercedes Jones is pursuing her MFA in creative writing. She's written poems, short stories, fiction, creative nonfiction. This book is part of her recovery, and her inspiration are the professional counselors she's worked with over the years. Tales from Therapeutic Journeys, a collection of poetry and vignettes.
Dealing with some issues that I've had in terms of anxiety, depression, post-traumatic stress disorder. And in my process of dealing with that and healing from that, I started to write in terms of journaling and wrote poetry and this kind of thing. And it actually formulated into my book. It's actually 60 poems and 4 vignettes. It really gives a lens to experiences of the human condition, in terms of shared humanity, in terms of emotional truth-telling, an array of human experiences in terms of emotionality, in terms of dealing with both external and internal conflicts as a human being that we all experience to some degree. And so I think, in terms of reading it, I invite my readers to experience the emotional truth telling and to help perhaps internalize their own experiences with human conflict.
Is there a short poem you could share with us?
Let me see if I have something here. I have my book right here. Okay, I did a dedication of the book to someone who's been an avid reader for a very long time. I've known her for over 40 years. And she's a professional piano player, performer. And in reference to a Beethoven symphony, I wrote 3 haikus in terms of how we met and the meaning of it and this kind of thing. So if you don't mind, I'd like to read that to you. Intrigue awakened, igniting kindred spirits inaugurated. Separate entities, sparkling treasured memories, steadfast to solace. Regained ecstasy, rekindled adoration, refined destiny.
Nice. Now, you said that you suffered from PTSD.
Yes,
What was that from?
sexual child abuse.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, through your book, do you share any experiences from your life?
Yes,
Okay, so the book is set up. We read a little bit about you and then a poem or a writing that is associated with that.
yes. It basically, the poem is a reflection of the experiences that I've had, and it's a reflection of that or representation of that. And it goes from the extreme of how I survived it during childhood, how I survived it, and at the same time, how to this day, given my age, I'm still coping with it. I'm still in current therapy and I'm still dealing with it. But writing the book and my works are part of my healing process. I was ready to voice my childhood. I was ready to give a voice to it, an authentic voice, expressing what happened. And it's not really to engage empathy or to, say, woe is me, some kind of pity story, but it's really in reference to survival and what does it mean to seek solace regardless of the experiences that a person has had to endure. Where's the hope? Where's the kind of grasp for seeking solace and being able to move forward?
All right, Dr. Jones, thank you. A recently retired nurse, David Sharp, decided to publish a collection of thoughts from about 40 years ago. It's entitled The Book of David.
Basically, it is a collection of thoughts that I put down many years ago to help me center myself and organize my thoughts. There's something that helped me get myself together, and I saved them and I looked them up again recently over the last couple of years, and I showed them to some people at work, and they really liked it. And so I sent them to a publishing company, and they made a book of it. It's mostly internal dialogue. Do you want me to read some of it to you?
Sure, give us an example.
Okay. Let us believe in the shimmering stars that radiate their ideas within our minds. Let us believe in the cascading powers of creation that define us as the beings we are. Let us believe in the shared existence that describes our journey here, one with another. Let our spirits mingle with one another that we may nourish each other. Let our souls grow together in knowledge, strength, and humility. And let us 2 by 2 be joined in spirit, soul, and body to find, know, and create each other.
Nice, very uplifting. So, what was going on when you wrote this?
I was living alone in a very small apartment. I was going to school. I would get up and run every morning, And after I would run, I would write.
It's like a stream of consciousness in this book.
Exactly, yes. And each one of them can stand alone. This is a collection of them, but each one of them can stand alone and actually is its own story in itself. Like that thing that I just read, that can stand alone. The same as all the other ones in there, they can stand alone. I mean, you could read one of these and put it down for a year and pick it up and it would be the same. All of them in here are positive. I made sure that everything that I put in this book would be positive.
So it's like you could read something every day just to kind of lift yourself up.
Exactly. And honestly, I read it myself sometimes if I'm down. I mean, I made it for people to read for themselves. I mean, because everything in here, even though I wrote it with a certain feeling, I mean, they may get a different idea from it. It's very individual, actually, if you know what I mean. I mean, the things I wrote here meant something to me when I wrote them, but they could mean something entirely different to somebody else. And I also went to Barnes and Noble, my local Barnes and Noble, where I've been a member for many, many years. And I talked to the manager, and she said she might put my book out on display.
Nice, David. That's the way to do it. Maybe they'll let you invite some people, do a couple of readings, and a book signing. Hey, you don't know if you don't ask. You gotta ask. All right, that is it for this edition of the Page Publishing Book Club. Download the podcast at 710WOR.com, and I'll catch you next time. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini.